Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take a stack of information and really extract the crucial insights you need.
Yeah, try to make sense of it all.
Exactly. Today, we're zeroing in on BioNTech's first quarter 2025 earnings call. Our mission, well, it's to cut through the jargon, get a handle on what these numbers and, the announcements really mean for the company's path forward.
And what's pretty fascinating right off the bat is this clear picture you get of a company really navigating a big transition. So their total revenues, they dipped slightly, came in around 183 million, down from 188 million same time last year. That's kind of in line with what everyone expected, right? As COVID shifts more towards an endemic thing.
Right, expected.
The real story, though, is sort of beneath that top line number.
Okay, so the COVID tailwinds are easing off. No big surprise there.
Yeah.
So where's the real energy and investment going inside BioNTech right now?
Precisely. I mean, you see this really dramatic increase in their commitment to oncology. That's the big story. Research and development expenses, they jumped way up to 526 million.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, compared to 358 million last year. So this isn't just, a little bump. It's a huge acceleration in their cancer therapy efforts, especially late-stage trials for BNT327, that's their antibody, and also their portfolio of ADCs, antibody drug conjugates.
Right, the ADCs. Those are the sort of smart bomb therapies?
Kinda, yeah. They combine the targeting ability of antibodies with the punch of a drug delivered right to the cancer cells. Pretty sophisticated stuff.
That is a massive leap in R&D spend. Really sounds like they're putting their money where their mouth is, strategically speaking.
Yeah.
What about the rest of the financials? Any offsets to this big investment?
Well, yes and no. We did see SG&A selling, general, and administrative costs come down a bit, about 121 million from 133 million, mostly because of lower external service costs, apparently.
Okay, some savings there.
But not enough to stop the net loss from getting bigger.
Ah, so the bottom line took a hit then.
Yeah, exactly. They reported a net loss of 416 million for Q1. That's up from a 350 million loss same time last year. So the loss per share went from 1.31 to 1.73. It just underlines the point, really, this aggressive investment in oncology, in future growth, it's definitely impacting profitability right now.
Makes sense, though. You got to spend money to make money, potentially. But can they keep this up? Is the cash pile healthy enough?
Oh, absolutely. Their financial position is still very robust. They're sitting on 15.9 billion in total cash and security investment.
Well, that's substantial.
It is. Now, that number is down from the end of last year, but you have to understand why. There were some big outlays, payments for the BioNTech acquisition, settlements with the NIH and Penn.
Right, I remember reading about those.
And they've got another payment coming up in Q2 related to that Penn settlement. So yeah, the balance is down, but they are still exceptionally well capitalized, plenty of fuel in the tank.
So even with those big spends, they've got a serious war chest to fund these ambitions. What about the forecast for the rest of 2025? Are they sticking to their guns on the outlook?
They are. Confirmed the full year guidance. They're still projecting revenues between 1.7 and 2.2 billion.
Okay.
R&D spend, they expect that to land between 2.6 and 2.8 billion, so continuing that high level of investment.
Right.
SG&A between 650 and 750 million, and CapEx between 250 and 350 million. Okay. So sticking to the plan, that reaffirmed guidance, it does provide a degree of stability, I think, for investors watching all this spending.
Okay, so the headline here is pretty clear then. BioNTech is making a strategic pivot, investing heavily, really heavily on oncology. It's hitting profits short term, but the financial foundation looks solid. Let's really dig into that oncology pipeline now. What were the biggest developments they flagged on the call? Yeah,
the main focus was definitely the progress in their key oncology programs. Leading the pack is BNT327. It's a fascinating bispecific antibody.
Bispecific, meaning it hits two targets at once.
Exactly. In this case, it targets PD-L1, that's a protein cancer cells use to hide from the immune system, and also VEGF-A, which helps tumors grow the blood vessels they need. And they had new phase 2 data presented at the European Lung Cancer Congress, ELCC. In first-line small cell lung cancer, when they combined BNT327 with chemo, the median overall survival was 16.8 months.
16.8 months. That sounds, well, pretty noteworthy for small cell lung cancer, which is tough. Any other insights on BNT327?
Yeah, there was more. At the ACR meeting, American Association for Cancer Research, they shared some early data. Phase 1, combining BNT327 with another one of their drugs, BNT325.
Okay, what's BNT325?
That one's an ADC targeting 2-ROP2. The early data suggests the combination seems to have a manageable safety profile, and importantly, it hints at maybe some synergistic effects in patients with different advanced solid tumors.
Synergistic. So potentially better together than either one alone.
That's the hope, yeah. And they've got phase 3 trials already running. BNT327 plus chemo in both small cell and non-small cell lung cancer, those are the big ones, obviously, needed to confirm the earlier results in more people.
So BNT327 is definitely a cornerstone, it seems. Hitting multiple pathways, testing across different lung cancers. What about outside of lung cancer?
Good question. We saw some really encouraging phase 2 data in first-line metastatic triple-negative breast cancer, TNBC.
Oh, that's a very difficult one to treat.
Exactly. Patients getting BNT327 plus chemo showed a 73.8% objective response rate, meaning, a good chunk saw their tumors shrink or stabilize.
That's a high OR.
It is, and the 18-month overall survival rate was almost 70%, 69.7%. Very promising for such an aggressive cancer. So promising, in fact, that they're planning a phase 3 trial for TNBC later this year.
Okay, so potentially practice changing if that pans out.
Potentially, yes. And there was also some phase 1 data for BNT327 alone as monotherapy in metastatic PD-L1 positive non-small cell lung cancer, showed a 47% response rate, median progression-free survival of 13.6 months. And they're not stopping there. They mentioned exploring combinations with other novel ADCs too, trying to broaden its potential even further.
It really is striking how much focus is on BNT327 across so many different settings. What about their other big approach, the mRNA cancer immunotherapies? I mean, that was their foundational tech, right?
Absolutely, and they're definitely still pushing forward there. They shared some data from an ongoing phase 1 trial of BNT116. That's their off-the-shelf mRNA approach. They call it FixVac.
FixVac, like standardized?
Yeah, targets common tumor antigens. They combined it with semiplumab, a checkpoint inhibitor, in frail patients with PD-L1 positive non-small cell lung cancer. The data suggests potential synergy there too.
Okay.
And then in parallel, they've got their individualized mRNA program, Organ Cure, tailored to each patient's specific tumor mutations. That's moving along in randomized phase 2 trials.
Personalized medicine approach.
Exactly. And they've published data from earlier phase 1 trials showing these individualized therapies can really generate these long-term T-cell responses specific to the patient's own unique tumor fingerprints or neoantigens, training the immune system, basically.
So a two-pronged mRNA strategy, off-the-shelf and fully personalized. Are any of these oncology assets getting close to, actual regulatory approval?
Yes, that's the next big milestone to watch. They're planning to submit their first BLA biologics license application for BNT323 by the end of this year, 2025.
BNT323, remind me.
That's their HER2 targeting ADC. The first submission will be for second-line HER2 expressing endometrial cancer.
Okay, specific population.
Yeah, based on response rate data from a single-arm trial. They estimate the addressable patient population in the U.S. and Europe is around 10,000 for that specific indication. Getting that BLA submitted, that would be a huge step for them. Really marks the start of potentially becoming a multi-product oncology company.
Yeah, a BLA submission is a major hurdle. That would be pivotal. Any other quick pipeline highlights?
Yeah, they touched on ongoing work with BNT316. That's an anti-CTLA-4 antibody, another immunotherapy type. Also BNT324, an ADC targeting B7-H3, and BNT142, a T-cell engager for Claudin-6.
Lots of moving parts.
Definitely. And they flagged they'll have a big presence at the upcoming ESMO meeting, European Society for Medical Oncology, planning 5 clinical data updates, so expect more news flow soon.
Okay, the oncology engine is clearly running at full throttle. Were there any management changes discussed?
Yeah.
Leadership updates?
Yep. One key change. Ramon Zapata is coming in as the new chief financial officer starting July 1st.
New CFO.
Yeah. He's succeeding Jens Holstein, who's retiring. Zapata comes with serious experience. He was CFO at Novartis Global Biomedical Research Organization.
Oh, Vardis. Interesting.
Right. So bringing in that kind of financial leadership seems pretty timely, given they're scaling up oncology and managing these huge R&D investments.
Makes sense. A crucial transition point requires experienced financial guidance. Okay, let's quickly touch base on their original blockbuster, the COVID-19 vaccine. What's the latest there?
Well, preparations are underway for a variant-adapted vaccine for the next season. They're watching closely, for decisions on which strains to target vaccination policies globally.
Right, the annual updates.
Yeah, they expect more clarity on that in the next 4 to 6 weeks or so. Market-wise, they're anticipating pretty stable vaccination rates in the U.S., mostly still the older group, 65 plus, and the immunocompromised.
So the core market remains.
Seems so. And financially, they don't expect much impact from the currently announced tariffs, but they are keeping an eye on future policy stuff naturally.
Okay, so still relevant, but clearly not the main growth engine anymore. So pulling it all together, what was the overarching strategy the outlook management conveyed?
I think the core priorities were crystal clear. It's all about executing on BNT327 and the mRNA cancer therapies. They see huge potential across different tumor types there.
Execution focus.
Yeah, and alongside that, actively building out their commercial side for oncology, getting ready for potential launches, starting presumably with BNT323 if it gets approved.
Right, got to sell the drugs.
Exactly. And while doing all that, they still aim to hold on to their leadership spot in the COVID vaccine market and keep advancing their other infectious disease work.
Okay, so for you, the listener, kind of boiling this down,
Yeah.
what are the key things to take away from this BioNTech quarter? What should you really be paying attention to?
Well, I think the absolute biggest takeaway is just the sheer scale of this bet on oncology. It's not a side project, right? It's a full-on strategic pivot.
Yeah, the R&D spend says it all.
Exactly. And the early data we talked about, particularly for BNT327 in tough cancers like TNBC and small cell lung, I mean, it offers a glimpse of potentially massive future revenue streams if, and it's a big if, the late-stage trials succeed and they get approvals.
Right, got to see the phase 3 data.
Definitely. The upcoming BLA submission for BNT323, that's a really critical inflection point to watch. It could be their first step into the commercial oncology market.
Uh-huh.
The new CFO from Novartis signals they're serious about managing this transition effectively. And while they confirmed guidance, you absolutely have to keep watching that high R&D spend.
Yeah, how sustainable is it long term?
Well, they have the cash now, but it's a key factor. And finally, just the backdrop of the evolving COVID market really underscores why this diversification into oncology is so strategically vital for them long term.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, now for our favorite part, the This Is Not Financial Advices segment. A little speculative fun based on all this.
Let's hear it.
So, given BioNTech's massive push into oncology and that particularly promising early data for BNT327 in triple-negative breast cancer, here's an outrageous but plausible idea for you to mull over. Not advice, just an idea.
Okay, laying it out there.
Consider looking into companies maybe developing or selling advanced diagnostic imaging tech, specifically designed for like early detection and monitoring recurrence in TNBC.
Imaging tech. Why?
Well, the rationale is if BNT327 really does become a new standard of care, if it extends survival significantly, wouldn't there potentially be a growing need for more sophisticated, maybe more frequent imaging to guide treatment? Watch closely for any return of the cancer.
I see. Longer survival means more monitoring, potentially with better tools.
Exactly. The tangential play, right? Not investing in BioNTech directly, but on something that could benefit if BioNTech succeeds big in that specific high-need area.
That's a really interesting angle, looking at the sort of ecosystem effects, how a breakthrough in one spot can create ripples elsewhere in healthcare.
Clever.
Just food for thought. And that wraps up our deep dive into BioNTech's first quarter 2025 earnings. We've hit their financials, the pipeline excitement, strategic shifts, and even a speculative idea. What stood out most to you listening in? What are your thoughts on this big oncology journey BioNTech is on?
Yeah, lots to consider.
Absolutely. Remember, this is just the starting point for your own research. Dig deeper. See how these insights fit your own strategies. Join us next time on the deep dive for another earnings call breakdown. Until then, keep your analysis sharp
And stay curious.